I know that you guys are here as a family. Why did you all agree to do this? I mean, I'm sure this is the last thing that you all wanted to see.
Personally for me, it was remembering and sharing some of the memories of my two good buddies. And I be honest, it hasn't been easy, but I think it's important that people know the personal sides of them. And I wanted to share some of that with them. It wasn't all business here. When we were even at when we were at the fire stations, it was, we had some good times, we had some good laughs, but we also had some away from that too.
I have to ask too, just in the short time that we've been here, the outpouring of support from the community, how has that touched you guys?
It's been amazing in that I never thought we would get this much. I knew there was community support. We'd go places and people would always say, "We thank you for what you do," and they'd show it with their words and their kindness. But it's almost been overwhelming. It's been so much that it's like it's a never-ending fountain, I guess you could say, and it helps a lot. It does help.
Frank, I have to go back to you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your two friends, because that's the reason why we're here. We want to put a face to who we lost.
Well, Matt came in at 51s as a rookie, and he was a pipeman. We were on the B shift together. I was a pipeman also. We actually became really good friends. There was 4 of us that hung out quite a bit. It was myself, BB, Matt, and Hiram Savalas. We hung out, away from the stations quite a bit. Actually, Matt and I did a lot of traveling together. We went to New York. We went to Vegas a couple times. We took a trip to Jamaica. We did he loved baseball. I mean, he loved going to the Astros games. He was a big fan. So one year, for Halloween, we dressed up. I don't know if any young guys remember this movie called The Warriors, but they had a gang in there called the Baseball Furies. And so we said, hey, let's be Baseball Furies. We'll go to Vegas, and we'll wear these outfits. It'll be real cool. We'll be real original. Well, of course, we show up to this to the arena where the Halloween party was. It was like 8 or 10 guys dressed like it. So we were like, oh, well, there goes the big surprise, So we had a good laugh about it. But we had a really good time. We had an '80s themed party. He came as a Karate Kid. One time he actually did, he was Nacho Libre at one of the parties. We were real big on Halloween, on doing parties and dressing up. And so, we used to have good times like that. So we had a great time in Jamaica. Just, I mean, it was just times like that I just reflect on now. And, I see pictures and, I get pretty emotional about it. But, what I'm grateful for is that I have those memories of him.
And that you were able to meet him, because a lot of people go through life and say, don't really have those relationships or people that you work with. A lot of people want to get away from the people they work with, right? I mean, they're like, oh God, get me out of there.
Yeah, a lot of times we were planning the next trip, or we were planning the next weekend, or whatever we could do. Yeah, I mean, whatever we could do together. And the thing about the fire department careers, guys will promote through, so you're going to lose some of those connections. Mm-hmm. So later during his career, and as I promoted first, I went to another station. So sometimes you lose that you'll lose that closeness, but you'll always know who your friends are. You always contact them every now and then. Just, hey, what's going on? And Matt was. We always knew that he was gonna move up the ranks really well, and he had taken the senior captain test, and he did really well on that, so we were all real proud of him for that. So it's one of those things that you're just real proud and happy to have known him. So I can say that I was real happy to have met him and to have been a good friend of his.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. What about, do you guys call him Robert for Garner, or Bobby, or am I?
Well, we just recently learned that he had a nickname, Bobby Robert, from his family when we visited him on Friday. and they told us some stories about him and of his upcoming. And they had a pool in their backyard, and they said that he loved the water and he would get in whenever he possibly could. And as soon as they told me that, it brought back, you know, one of the things here is at the station when we get rookies, there's certain people that are their mentors. And I myself, I kind of sit back and I just observe. I watch them as they grow, and they come in the morning, they check out their apparatus, they change out the batteries, they look at all the equipment to make sure that it's there, and I watch their tendencies and I watch their movements, and I see where they're at certain parts of the day, and that's where my plot comes in. My job is to get them wet. And so for Robert, the first, you know, 7 to 10 times that I tried to get him wet, I missed. And I just didn't miss, I like totally missed. And it wasn't like he was trying to avoid me. He had no idea that I was trying to get him wet. He'd be checking off his checklist, and here I go with my bucket of water, and at the last minute he'd move, and you know, that big splash behind him, he'd be looking around trying to figure out, you know, who's trying to get him wet or whatever. And I couldn't figure out why he kept, I was missing. So finally we got together as a group, and we finally successfully got him wet. But it all made sense to me why we couldn't get him wet is because the boy had been swimming his whole life. He was always wet. So when he came to work, naturally he just avoided, you know, that situation. But we finally figured out why, and we were able to get him wet. And after that, he stayed wet. So.
Yeah. Vincent, let me ask you, does it help having this family with you? I mean, you all know what you all are going through. So this is not just one person. We meet people all the time, unfortunately, going through tragedies, but typically it's one person. So does it help having these people around you and knowing that you all are so cohesive?
Yes, I mean, it's all one big family, and even from the first day, you know, everyone's picking on the rookie, trying to get him wet, and but it's all bonding and building each other up, and it helps knowing that we're all going through the same thing together, and you know, you can lean on any one of these guys or girls here, and for advice or help or any time of the day.
Speaking of girls or women, I guess I should say, we need to talk about Ann. Who can tell me how she got her nickname? Punky, right? Can anybody talk about that?
There was a couple of nicknames she had. That and Mighty Mouse. Ann was only with us, was her 11th shift, and she had did her first 6 shifts or 3 tours on the ambulance, and getting a taste of EMS life in Southwest Houston, to which she was extremely surprised at the call volume, but she was adjusting. It was her 5th day on the pumper, and the name Mighty Mouse that I've heard, I also had the privilege of serving with her in another fire department for over the 3 previous years, and you look at Ann and she's very small in stature, and she's very unassuming in her personality. She's quiet, but the one thing about Ann that people underestimated was what she lacked in physical stature, she made up with in sheer determination. She'd find a technique or a way to do it. And, I mean, and she was powered essentially by a nuclear reactor. She didn't have an off button. When it came to constantly finding a way, she was going to find a way. I'm proud to have known her for as long as I have, although it's not as long as others. And like Lupe was talking about, when you're sitting in the watch office and you look down, you know, with Garner was always moving, and he was always moving, doing something. At 5:30 in the morning, he's changing batteries on the radios, he's changing the tick camera, he's making tea to his standards, you know, he's getting the newspaper, the flags are going up. He took Ann under his wing the same way that Mark took Garner underneath his wing and said, look, this is the routine. You're the rookie. This is the outline of the day. And this is in addition to Ann, and when Garner was a rookie, when all of us were rookies, you know, you still got to learn the apparatus. You have to learn your policies and procedures. Everything else book-wise, but then you still have to learn station life. And like Frank said, station life is completely different than the binders they give you in the academy about policies and procedures. Station life is being one of us. And it's not that it's some exclusive fraternity, but until you ride on the fire trucks with all of these guys, and you ride on the apparatus and you make the runs with us, It's hard to understand, and it sounds so cliche to use the term fraternity or brotherhood, but it is. And Ann was no exception to that. Ann had a taste of it. She came here, and unfortunately, you know, things worked out the way they did. But Ann was well upon her way of becoming a regular part of our crew. And when you're in the watch office and you look down, like I said, you saw Garner bouncing around, you knew where he was, but you never saw Ann because she was that tall. But you saw a ponytail. And all you saw was a ponytail bouncing back and forth between the chief's car, the ladder truck, and you knew where Ann was. And Garner was doing an outstanding job of bringing her up. I'll let Lupe talk about the dishwashing incidents. And, you know, dishes are part of the rookie's life.
Right.
It's not anything that's really ever, the captains, the chief don't say, rookie, you shall. It's just something that's handed down out of respect for the chief, for the officers, for the senior guys. The rookie does the dishes. And Garner didn't know how to walk away from that. He felt that his job was to do everything that wasn't getting done. And so he was always doing dishes for Ann. And we'd have to tell Garner, sit down. It's not your job anymore. He'd sit down for 5 minutes, but he'd be a nervous wreck. And then 5 minutes later, you turn back around and he's helping Ann with dishes. But that's the kind of person he was, and Ann was following right down those footsteps because Garner was showing him the way, the same way that Mark showed Garner the way.
Once when Ann was off on a run somewhere, Garner tried to wash my plate, and he saw me at the sink. He tried to wash my plate. He came up there, and we started tussling over the plate, wrestling around, and you know, I'm the chief, and so I told him, I said, son, you're not the rookie anymore. You don't you don't do this. Yeah, let me have it, let me have it. I said, no, you're not going to do that. And so we're still fighting over it. And I said, you know, I'm giving you an order, let go of that plate, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And he gave me that little classical smile he has. He said, how much trouble can I get in? I had to let him have the plate then. I just let him have it. But that's the way he was. And Ann, same way. If you walk up there, she's already reaching for that plate. She wasn't about to let me wash that plate.
So it sounds like it was in their blood, right?
Oh yeah, these people were born to be firefighters, born to come up here and get into our system and work their way. And they want, you know, sometimes you see people who don't do too well. They don't seem to fit in just right. We've had a few of those come here, and but then these like they were just a perfect fit from the start, you know, because they wanted this more than anything in their life. They wanted to be a firefighter. And we got some information from Robert Garner's family about that. They said he just lived and breathed, wanted to be a firefighter, and when he became one, it just made his life.
You know, you're a chief, so you have a lot of responsibility. I'm not belittling any of your jobs, but
we all do, but yes.
But if I can, I mean, you got to be the proud papa, right?
Oh, I am, absolutely. Of all these guys, I love them all like they're my own family, and you know, and so and especially when the rookies come in, you know, Larry sets them up pretty good. He always tells them, you are a rookie, you do not speak to the chief, you do not look at the chief, you do not, and then we set it up where the dinner table, the only chair left is right next to the chief, you know, and so she has no choice but to sit there, you know, and so maybe Robert, I know one time Robert came and sat on the sofa and was eating because he didn't want to sit right next, but you know, the chief is some big deal, but really not. Really, right. I try to blow all that away because I don't like that, and but I have a talk with all rookies. I bring them in. I just call it the chief's talk. And so she was told, you can't talk to the chief, you can't, you know, and then the next thing you know, I'm calling her in the office. Well, she was on the ambulance those days, and for 4 days, she ducked me. Well, she did. She didn't want to, I mean, I told her, I need you to come see me in the office as soon as you get back from your run. Okay. And okay, sir. And but then she'd come back and she'd like be praying for another run because she didn't want to go in there. Well, finally she came in there, and so I'm just asking her questions. Why'd you want to become a firefighter and all this sort of thing? And she kept saying, sir, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir. I said, look, you don't have to call, just say yes, chief, or what. She said, oh, no, chief, no, sir, I can't do that, sir. You know, so, I mean, she just, you know, she was beginning to start opening up, but she knew her place, and she was gradually working her way up.
Yeah.
And Robert was starting to actually talk to me too, believe it or not, because he was now off probation. But
what do you think, or who, might be able to answer this. What do you think drove these people to do this job? Anybody?
I'd like to try.
Yeah.
I think it's a calling. I'm a very religious person, and I don't think you even have to be a religious person to receive a calling from God. I believe every person in this room, whether they know it or not, they got a call in their life to do this job. They're chosen for this job. And those that are not chosen don't do it very well. Those that are chosen are the best you can find, best people you can find. And that's what I believe. That I believe you're chosen for it. And if you were to become a lawyer, we have some lawyers that ride with us from time to time. They were, I believe in their heart, they were chosen to be a firefighter, and they're just a lawyer, you know, but they want to come and ride with us and be with us and things like that. So I believe it's a calling.
You think they answered the call well?
Oh, yes, absolutely. They gave all, you know.
Those two?
Of course. Oh, yeah, those two.
In
and
addition
the others,
to Captain Renaud and BB?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Captain Renaud and Robert Beebe. I mean, Robert, for instance, Robert Beebe on the ambulance. Sometimes we have. they all know what I'm going to say. We have some guys, you know, who maybe don't want to do everything just exactly right. They kind of want to slip through the cracks a little bit. Not Robert. He was so perfect on that, and he drove some of these guys crazy with, and a run would drop somewhere, and it really wasn't their run, you know. He would jump on that run and take it. And the other guys are like, oh no, you know, because out here we make so many runs. Right. But that's the kind of guy Robert Beebe was. He would just jump on it and do it, and you couldn't tell him no different. He was wanting to do his job. That's the difference between the best people and the other people. Those that want to do their job, and they don't care what danger it brings. They don't care. They just do it. Yeah. And that was Robert Beebe. And that's all these people. You see it in District 68, we're the busiest in the city. We make more big fires. We make fires like this, tragedies. And in order to stay here, you have to be at the top of your game. People come here, they stay a little while, some of them, and they leave. And because they can't handle what we have to deal with. All these people in this room you see here are people who stay and go through all of the BS, all of the abuse that we get from time to time, and they stay here because they want to serve, and this is where you can serve the most.
And
that's how it is.
To add what the chief's saying, it's not just Station 68, it's our whole district.
Our whole district.
Station 51 has habitually been probably the busiest ladder truck in the city, and one of the busiest engines and trucks in the country. I mean, these guys over here, Rincon, Bailey, Mario, Jason, Frank, that was a crew that back in the day, before promotions and everything, I mean, and they can speak a lot better about it, but when I drove the engine here and BB would drive the pumper at 51s, after, Frank had transferred off, I mean, there was always that, and I go back to that brotherhood, you don't know what it means for 51s to get to a fire in 68's territory first, because I'm never going to hear the end of it. Conversely, when I got to a fire first, or got our company to a fire first in front of 51s, I assure you, he's never going to hear the end of it. And it wasn't because we were trying to insult each other, it's because we wanted to have the opportunity to do our job as good as we could. And if it was in their territory, so much the better. But that's part of that brotherhood. And Rincon, I mean, all these guys, it's impossible to understand what 51s and us, you have the brotherhood amongst the shift, but then you have the brotherhood, and rivalry is the wrong word, but the competitive spirit is probably a fair term.
Yeah.
Between us and them, because it's not that we're trying to avoid our job, it's just the opposite. Right. We want to beat them there to do our job. And Ann, Garner, BB, Renaud, Captain Dowling, they're all cut from the same cloth. It was all about doing the job. And it wasn't about doing the job so Jason could have a pat on the back. It was because doing it for the right reasons in the community.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yeah. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah, actually, the thing about Robert being an ambulance chauffeur, and I'll let Jason talk about this too, but he saw 51s, you have an area to cover, and he didn't want no one else in his area. I mean, nobody at all. He would carry his radio, portable radio, on one channel, and have another radio on another channel, so that way if he heard if they were almost done at the hospital, and if he heard a run come into the station, and if the engine or the ladder truck had to go, he would tell these guys, get going so we can get back in service and we can go. You know, so he didn't want anybody else coming into his territory, so that way you couldn't say that he was slacking.
Right.
You know, I mean, he was the hardest working ambulance chauffeur out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say in the whole city, you know, by far. Absolutely.
That's funny that Frank was saying that, because I had the privilege, well, not really a privilege, but to ride with BB his last day on the ambulance, and God, did this guy want to break some records that day. It was literally 5:30 in the morning, and there was a shooting right here at Apartments Del Sol. I still remember, because he got into cop mode. And when BB, if anybody knows him, when he gets in his firefighter cop mode, because he used to be a police officer, it's a different scenario with that guy. He's talking to cops, he's pretending he's Mr. Police Officer, he hog ties the guy, he throws him in the back, no gloves on. Like, the dude was gross. No gloves on, and just wanted to just break records. I think we made like 22 or 23 runs that day. It was just unreal, and I'm like ready to blow my head off, and he's like, we got to jump on this. This is our territory. And I'm just like, baby, just, can I finish up my last record? Just let me finish. And, you know, when he gets into cop mode, that gives me some time to read and do my records. And, you know, luckily that's what happened. And, you know, he was a great guy. And like he said, it was his territory. It wasn't Station 51. It was Robert Beebe's. And they knew him by name over the radio, because he would always ask, put me on this, put me on that. And OEC would just get mad at him all the time, and you know, it was just ridiculous, because they knew him personally, and the way he was, and it was, God dang, it was BB's territory.
Yeah.
It definitely was. And
it sounds like he's kind of the guy that lit up the room, right?
Oh, of course.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And if he didn't light it up,
Yeah.
he fixed the light to light it up, because he
Yeah.
fixed
I will.
everything.
Give me a second about that.
He was like the Bob Vila of everything. Yeah, like the Mexican MacGyver, if you could say.
Yeah, that's not going to make it on TV.
I'll tell you the story. We you know, saved up enough money, and we bought a new a television, and we had, you guys remember this, the TV, and we bought a surround sound system too, but the station's kind of old, so we weren't. I let Robert talk and see how we were going to be able to run the wires without them, because he didn't want any wires exposed, you know. So we were like, okay, so, you know, I brought some equipment up, you know. We started tearing up the station, and I'm looking around 2 hours later. I said, my God, the other shifts are going to kill us, man, what we've done. Just the mess we've made, you know. And he's like, no, it'll be okay, it'll be okay.
Yeah,
so,
I'll fix it.
yeah, and it was like if he took something apart and put it back together, and you showed him, hey, you still got these pieces missing, he'd look at it and say, you don't need that. We don't need that. And then he would look at one and say, uh-oh, you need that. And then so you have to take it back apart, you know, figure it out. But I mean, we managed to get it up, and it looked great afterwards. But that's just the type of guy he was. He came to my house, he helped fix put in hardwood floors. I mean, he had some construction background before he got in. So I mean, he did all these little things around him. It was just such a pleasure to have him. I mean, saved me a lot of money, you know. So, but I mean, even with other crews, Hiram Sabalas, I think he remodeled almost his entire house for him, you know. I mean, but that's just the kind of guy Robert was. He was just such a giving guy, you know, whether they're, and even when his father had gotten sick, and they remodeled their bathroom. And I mean, it took them a while to do it, but they got it done, you know. But that's just the type of guy he was, and he didn't want anything in return, you know. And going back to the ambulance thing, if a run came in, and it was dinner time or breakfast time, we had to force him to sit down and let somebody else take it for him, because he was just wanting to go. He just didn't want anybody else to do that job, you know. So, but we had to hold him down to tell him, you guys eat, you know, you guys take it, you know, let someone else take it for him. That's just the type of guy Robert was.
And it seems like all four of them had that.
Absolutely,
drive, you know?
and that was something.
It just like, not a lot of people are born with that drive, or, you know, what you say is like the fire in your belly, you know, it's something that motivates you. Yeah. And it seems like, ironically, all four of these people were so motivated to just be good people and make people like make themselves known. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not for the recognition.
Right.
But am I right? I mean,
Yeah.
Service.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Make themselves known in service to others. That's
Right.
what they were doing.
And it's like Chief was saying, that's you know, and the guys can tell. I mean, we've had guys come in crews before, and you know within the first day if they're going to fit into your crew and if they're going to understand the culture of the station and the culture of the district. You know, you know within that first day. Some guys do and some guys don't. The guys that don't, they find a way out. You know, but the other guys, we find a way to keep them in. So that's what's important.
Well, and that's what's important about Garner, is that Garner was our rookie 2 years ago. And we had managed to avoid getting a rookie. But stations like 51s, us, 82s, 73s, that doesn't last for long. You wind up getting another rookie because they can learn the job faster. And Garner was that type of person. Being a rookie, he doesn't have a permanent hole here. He wasn't permanently assigned. And he was beyond petrified at the idea of having to go someplace else. But as a testament to how he was, we had multiple stations and other shifts here trying to poach the guy because of how he was. Not that he would work all day long, but because of the ease that people could be around him. They knew he was going to do his job and then some, but he was just a great person. And so what Frank talks about is, you know, some people try and leave. Garner was trying to find a way to stay here. He didn't have a permanent slot. We're always over. 51s is always over. We're a big station, and we didn't have the available personnel slot, and he was doing everything he could because he wanted to be here. And I think Frank put it perfectly. You got some people, they walk in the door and they realize they ain't supposed to be here. And then you got others that realize, hey, you know what, you probably don't need to be here. But Garner was just the opposite. He was meant to be here and he wanted to be here.
Yeah.
I was trying to keep him here, but there's only so much I can do. And so I had two guys in that same situation, but Robert had time on the other one. The other one was Daniel Bermea at 51s. And we had a temporary position. We could put one of them in at Station 73. So the captain over there asked me to do that, so I talked to Robert. I told the captain, well, Robert has first shot at it, so I give him first shot. And so I went to Robert and said, either you or Daniel, one of you two is going to have to go to Station 73 as a permanent fill-in. And he says, I said, you have first shot at it because you got the most time. And he just looked at me and said, well, just give it to Daniel. So he wanted to stay here. He was fighting to stay here. And he would deliberately, if they asked him to put in for a station, he would deliberately put in for something he knew he couldn't get. That way they would let him stay here.
He knew the game.
Yeah, way to go. So I have to ask, you know, the tough questions. And you know, how do you properly honor these four? I mean, I'm going to try to do my best with these stories. How do you do that? You know, because there comes that moment when life has to go. You've got to take the balloons down, or people stop coming over. There's going to come that time. So how do you properly honor them?
I think number one, you have to never forget them. Okay, that's number one. I can guarantee you I never will.
To answer the
Number
I'm
two,
sorry, go ahead.
Number two, all of us that are on this job need to take them with us everywhere we go. Every fire we make, all of y'all, some of y'all feel like quitting. I know you do. Some of you feel like just, somebody told me I can't put this uniform on again. I told them I had to get a piece of their butt right then. I told them, how could you possibly dishonor the people that we've lost by not carrying on what we do, the tradition, the job, the profession, the calling that I said a while ago. That we honor. We've all got to stay on this job, go out there and do. We got to ramp it up and do better than we've ever done before in memory of our four brothers and our three brothers and our sister and Captain Dowling also. That's how we honor them. Never forget. Never quit. That's all I can say about that.
Did you want to add something?
I mean, it's just like the chief said. I think George Saldana from 51s put it on Facebook yesterday. It's pretty simple. You walk in the door at 6:30 in the morning, and you saddle up and you roll out. I mean, that's the only way to honor Garner and BB in Captain Bernard, because I can assure you, if given the opportunity and it was like, hey, you want to get on the truck and take that run, they'd race you for it. And that's the best way to honor them, and just go out. We learn from what happened. We move forward. We remember who they were as individuals, who they were professionally, and we keep praying for Captain Dowling, and we go out there and we make sure that honestly, we're never, and I don't,
We take care of their families,
and I
too.
don't want to screw this whole thing up, but which I probably just did, but they're gone. We know that. All we can do is keep them in our heart, like the chief said. And honestly, as stupid as it sounds, is the run comes in right now, you load up and you roll out and you do the job, and we do everything we can to make sure that everybody in this room comes back home to make the next one. To do anything less for Robert Garner, for Ann, for Captain Renaud, for BB, or for Captain Dowling is a disservice to them and the fire service as a whole. We would be cheapening everything if we didn't keep going.
Well said.
Yeah, I did say it.
Any other stories?
was
Or
George,
do
wasn't
you want to add anything? Oh, I see you
I was
smile.
just going to talk about BB's love for animals.
Oh,
Right?
man.
Everybody knows that
Yeah,
from
oh my
here.
God.
Oh, wait, I think I do
You
know
know,
that. He's like a, yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? Soft
Yeah,
spot for him.
yeah. I mean, not only did he take care of the people, you know, in the community, but he took care of the animals. You know,
Homeless animals?
homeless animals, abandoned animals, animals we'd see, you know, locked up inside a gate somewhere. You know, there was the German Shepherd. Remember the guard dog? Yeah.
The pit bulls.
The
off
pit
of Renwick.
bulls. Yeah. Well, the guard dog, this big old giant, snarling German Shepherd. You know, he was behind this gate at was it a auto parts?
The garage.
The garage.
Fire. Yeah, there was a car.
Yeah, and he was like, man, that dog doesn't look good. You know, like he would see all that, you know, midst of a fire going on, and everything. He'd look at this dog doesn't look good, you know. So, you know, and it was the German Shepherd that didn't have no water, you know. So every time he'd drive by and go to the store, he'd get that dog some water, you know. But the dog didn't want him. You know, the dog was attacking the gate and trying to get at him, you know, because it was a guard dog doing his job. But, like, he would cut the top off a jug of water and just put it in there, you know.
What was the deal, right?
He loved animals.
That
He
was just
loved, and yeah, he has, mhm,
We had two pit bulls in Renwick,
yeah,
and some homeless guy had them, and he didn't have another pet to feed them. And every day we'd fuel the pumper up, we'd get a bag, maybe buy a bag of dog food, 2 bags of ice, enough for 5 days would be gone. So the next day they'd have, you know, enough food for the whole week. And that was every day.
yeah,
Every day.
and his own dogs too. He had 5 dogs at his house, you know?
Yeah.
And they stayed in the house with him, and he was always concerned about his dogs, you know, like if he had to hold over or, you know, come in for somebody, he'd have to call somebody. He'd call his mom a lot. Hey, can you go feed the dogs? You know, because he was worried about the dogs, you know, at his house. You know, couldn't you go let the dogs out? Or if he got called in for overtime and say he was at Jersey Village and he got called in for overtime at night, you know, he'd come in, but he'd be hysterical. He's like on the phone trying to get somebody to go let his dogs out, you know.
Yeah.
He just
One
loved
time
them.
we were coming from a run.
Hang on, switch that mic.
We're coming from a run off the freeway. We turned down Hillcroft, coming back to the station, and BB sees this little 2-pound chihuahua running down Hillcroft, right? Oh, Lord. So he immediately, all you hear is the air brake. I'm like, what are we doing? You know, Captain Renaud's like, man, what are you doing? He jumps out. He takes off down Hillcroft. So Captain Renaud looks at me, Eckerman, hey, if he's running, you're running. I'm like, you know, I ain't no runner. So all I remember, I think it was like an hour. We ran. Captain Renaud jumped in the pumper. He was driving behind us, blocking people. We're chasing this little chihuahua all the way down Hillcroft. We finally caught it, and it was weird because we caught it, and he looked over, and the owner of the chihuahua was looking for the dog, and he gave it back to him. But he always did stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
For a little chihuahua.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was that way. And the city had recently put some trees in front of the station, and so a while back, some drunk drivers kind of took them out, you know. So BB comes back to work and he's like, "Oh, the trees," you know. He's like, "I'm gonna go fix them," you know. Just, you know, he would just say that. He wouldn't ask nobody, "Hey, you want to help me or something?" he would just go out there and be like, hey, I'm going to go fix this because it looks wrong.
It was raining.
Yeah.
How
I
was
mean,
that,
yeah.
Corsi? Because you helped him fix it in the rain.
Yeah. Oh, was that the second time or the first time?
I think the second time.
Okay. Yeah, the first time he went out there and he just got some wire and he stood the tree back up. Okay. But then another drunk driver, weeks later, hits it again. So BB's like, God, you know, and we don't have no more wire. So what's BB do? He gets out Curlex and and Band-Aids. And he gets Corsi out there. You know, he's like, Corsi, come on, come help me, come help me.
I don't know how he did that.
You know, and the trees are back up and they're growing again. You know, I mean, this guy just, he had a touch with everything.
Yeah.
You know?
The trees were messed up on both sides of the crossover. Been run over. There was a couple trees on each side now. And BB was determined to go out there, straighten things up one way or the other. And I got to look at him, I thought, better go out there and give him a hand. He will take however much time it takes to do it. Whatever it takes, he's going to get it done. So I went out there with him, and next thing you know, we've got a sledgehammer, a Halligan tool, went and got his wire cutters and tools out of his own coat pocket and everything, and got out there, and I was just trying to support him with what he was doing. He's trying to tie a limb off, just hold the limb in place so he can work the wire. And I got to looking on, and then I started looking around at the rest of it there, and okay, where is he going to be going or needing to go from this next? How much wire does he have? Where do we get the wire? And each tree had so much wire designated for it, and they said, we're running out of wire here, so how do we put two trees closer together? Can we get enough wire to wrap around both of them? And I basically sit there and just watch what he was doing, let him have it. No, I didn't want to interfere with what he was doing. I didn't want to do something. No, I don't want to do it that way. Okay, fine. So, and he was, yes, he was a man on a mission. Anything. I was thinking the other day, he would tinker with anything. That was just one item. I mean, seen tinker with a squirrel cage fan and a station. It wasn't operating right. Somebody else could elaborate on that. I think he probably took the whole thing apart and rebuilt it just to make sure it was working.
And painted it.
The 1984 washing machine. He wanted to fix it.
Washing machine, washer and dryer in the station. But the trees, when we got through, and the rain, that was the subject came up. It began to sprinkle, and it started raining. It wasn't hard. There was enough it was definitely noticed. And I thought, we're not going to leave from here until he's satisfied that he has got this job done the way he thinks it should be. So, and whether or not that was even or better than how it was originally. So, anyway, that's basically the story with the trees.
Anybody else? I know that you guys.
Bailey's got a great story.
I was gonna say earlier what you were saying about him being like the life of the party, but everyone that knows him knows he was a complete opposite in the morning. I mean, BB would come in a bad mood, he's coughing, I'm sick, I shouldn't even be here, I feel terrible, and he's dragging 5 different wires, chargers, all kinds of crap because he was so high tech. And I'm the opposite. I'm like Larry, who was saying, I'm wired in the morning. I'm talking up a storm, saying BS, so I've already said that to BB. And I think he started every morning by saying, shut up, Bailey. Every single day. So the one that they were talking about was when I first transferred over there, our first trip that we took together was on a river trip. And, you know, we were all really excited to get there, and we got out there, we had our black tubes, and right from the bat, who's busted?
Mine did, because I jumped on it and it hit that rock, and I was like,
Yeah.
there goes, I was like, damn, there goes my freaking tube. And then Bailey gives me her tube.
Yeah.
So she's like, here.
So I'm walking at this point down the river trip that we're supposed to float, and here's BB. You know, we have beverages, you know, so we're having a good time, and we did it the night before. So BB's on his tube, and he's just, anybody that knows BB knows he always got lost. Anytime we went anywhere, he always got lost, and he didn't ever have any shoes. So, yeah. So he, sure enough, on his tube, he's getting lost. So we finally get enough ropes, tie him. I had one tube with the cooler and one tube with BB, who was asleep about 3/4 of the river trip. And I think I pulled him the entire.
You pulled him the whole time.
The entire time.
The entire time. It was funny.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
And BB was just laying there.
He's just laying there like, go
Didn't even eat
faster,
sunflower
slow
seeds.
down.
And he wasn't even leaning over. He would just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like,
we
keep
have
going,
a picture
baby.
of that.
You know.
It was great.
Yeah, his sunglasses broke. He had them tied around his face.
Yes. He just got like a piece of string from somewhere. It was his glasses that broke, tied into his head. It was just there like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was sharing this about, the brother-sister relationship. You know, we say we're a family, we're like siblings, and I call them my kids, okay? And one of the joys is, she already alluded to it, is in the morning. Well, this is in the evening, and they're always at it like a brother and sister. You know, and you can hear Bailey off in the background, BB, and you hear, what? You know, so, and that just made me laugh. You know, and she'd come over, you know, are you going to help me with this? With what? You know, I need this fixed. It was already fixed. You know, I took it apart. Why? You know, why'd you do that? I'm not going to help you. BB. Just leave it right there. Okay. And it was to tease him would be to leave, y'all already said this, you know, leave something that's not fixed, leave it broke on the table. Okay, I'll leave it there. Go get my tools. And he usually had a cigarette. Where's my screwdriver? It's in the locker. It's not there anymore. Yes, it is. It's not where it's supposed to be, because he was very A-type. You know, it's got to be here. I moved it. It's in a new spot. They were both just at it back and forth. And so she would, you know, try to sweeten him. You know, I'm hungry. And she'd go make him a sandwich. And he'd bring, BB, I made you a sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want mayonnaise. Yeah. You know, you put Miracle Whip. I don't like Miracle Whip. BB, you know, just shut up and eat it. You know, okay. And, you know, I don't like it cut in a triangle. Just leave me a hole, you know. You didn't put enough turkey. I mean, it's just constantly like that, back and forth. And it just, BB, are you going to fix it? No! Okay. And we all knew that was a lie, you know, and she'd walk off and come back, and there he is tinkering with it. You know, where's my toolbox? It's right where you left it. It's not there anymore. Well, I moved it. Why'd you move it? I mean, it was just constantly back and forth like that. All right. And, yeah, that was the love of my life, just listening to that.
What are you going to miss most?
Huh?
What are you going to miss most?
Oh, the whole dynamic, from morning to evening. Yeah, both of them.
Both of those guys.
The whole.
Nod and BB, they were tight.
They were really tight, right?
They were piping
one
together at the B shift.
Yeah. Right?
No, they started 15.
They got promoted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt and BB rode in the front, or Cameron Nod and BB rode in the front. And the bickering that, you know, them two, that BB and Bailey did, it was the same in the front, you know. Did you do the manpower yet? No. Why didn't you do it yet? Well, I hadn't had time to. You got me doing this. You got me doing that. You know, it was all day long. And same in Cameron Nod, he would never let anybody take a shortcut on nothing. Nothing. I mean, when I came in, when I was at 73s as a rookie, he was an ambulance chauffeur on the C shift. And I used to hate doing debit days because, you know, we make a lot of runs out here. And, you know, you're supposed to, if you make a BS call, you're supposed to call a supervisor and this and that. And, you know, sometimes you know, oh, whatever. You know, I'm telling on myself right now. But, every but every time
Get the hell out.
every time as
Come on, Bobby.
every time I was on the ambulance and Cameron Nod was a chauffeur, every run we come in, I didn't even want to look at him because I know he'd be already looking at me like, are you going to call a supervisor on that? You know, every time. He wouldn't let anybody take a shortcut. And that's why he was such a good captain, you know. He was a friend, but he also knew how to be your boss when it was time to be your boss. And I'm going to miss that about him, and both of them.
It's one, I was on an ambulance with BB, and it was like 2 in the morning, he had stayed up with Frank working on that same stereo system. And
2 in the morning.
a run comes in, and I'm already in bed. I get up, I see him walk by. He's walking pretty fast, and I was like, "Just wait for me, 'cause, you know, I gotta put on my shirt." All of a sudden, about 5 seconds later, he comes back, and his breathing's different. So I'm like, "Hey, did we get disregarded?" And he's just like making, you know, movements with his hands. So I'm like, "Oh, maybe we got disregarded." And I start thinking, what was wrong with his breathing? So I go back, and I kept asking him, "Hey, are we disregarded?" And I go back over there. He's in the bay, in the back of the bay, in the back of the station. He's, you know, trying to cough. And I'm like, "Hey, are we disregarded?" And he's still making, you know, the hand gestures.
Right.
And I said, "Hey, are you choking?" You know, and, you know, he's still doing this. And I'm like, "Oh, man," you know, so I grab him and I, you know, start doing the Heimlich on him. It took me about 4 tries to finally get this big piece of chicken wing out of his throat.
Yeah.
And I said, "What were you doing eating chicken wings at 2 in the morning?" He's like, "Man, I was hungry." I said, "And what is all this? I mean, what happened to the universal sign of, you know, I'm choking?" He says, "Man, I owe you one." I said, "Let's go make this run." I said, "Shouldn't we call somebody? You know, you just almost died." And he's like, "Man, I just hit en route. We've been en route too long. Let's go." And we made that run. I mean, that's how dedicated he was. So.
Great story. Yeah.
I could tell you one quick story about him, that Captain Bernard.
Yeah, go ahead.
We were going to a warehouse fire one day, and I was wanting someone to check further down the street. And so I gave him the order to check, you know, a certain area. And he knew that someone else had already checked that area. And so we're trying to find this thing. And so he said, he comes in, he says, "Well, I think Engine 60's already checked that area," or somebody. And I said, well, you just go ahead, you know, just check the area. And he comes back, "Well, I'm pretty sure that's already been checked." So then I got a little bit hot on the radio with him, and I chewed him out pretty good. Well, of course, the whole city hears that. The whole city hears that. So right away, I felt bad about doing it. I told him, "Just do what you're told," or something like that. I don't remember exactly what I said, but so everybody in the whole city hears that. They're like, "Ooh, man, he just got his butt chewed out," you know. So then when the first time I go over, they're all teasing him and everybody's teasing. The first time I go over to the station, I figure I'm going to go apologize to him for being like that. And he just laughing about it, smiling. It didn't bother him a bit. He's like, "Well," I said, "Did you learn anything from that?" He said, Yeah. He said, "Next time I'm just going to do what you say, because the price is too high." Because all these guys are teasing him now. And Larry teased him unmercifully about it, you know.
What do you think their reaction would be right now? You know, they're looking down at you guys, telling all these stories and talking about the passion that they all had. What do you think their reaction is?
I think their number one thought would be, "I wish I was there."
Yeah, they'd be laughing.
They would be laughing. They would be enjoying this. We have a thing where,
better.
Yeah, they'd be telling it better. We have a thing where we all sit around and we talk and we one-up each other all the time. They'd be right in the middle of this, one-upping. You know, we always say, like, somebody will tell a story and someone else will say, "Oh, that ain't nothing." And then they tell theirs, and then, "Oh, that ain't nothing," you know.
What about the spotlight that's on them right now? You know, all of this, do you think
they would be squirming in the spotlight? Nobody really, none of us really likes spotlight. We really don't. We you know, not to say anything bad about y'all, but when y'all come to our fires, we try to duck y'all. You know, we try to whatever we can do, because we don't want to go on that camera. You know, and we're doing this today because of our brothers and our sister. We want people to know about them, but we try to duck y'all when y'all come with the cameras. You know, because none of us wants that spotlight. So they would not really like that. They would be squirming from that. That wouldn't make them happy. Their whole focus is not outside these walls. Their focus is inside the walls of this fire station, and taking care of business. That's it. And so if you put the spotlight on, they're like, "Oh, I don't like this," you know.
I was his senior, and he would introduce me as his boss, you know, and I felt very uncomfortable about that. I would tell people, "I'm his boss on paper, otherwise he runs the show." And if you can imagine, some of these kids around here are kind of smart alecks from time to time. Not always, just every once in a while. And Captain Renaud would do the job, training, testing, what have you, okay? And, you know, sometimes on a Sunday, can we just hang low? You know, they would come up to me and tell me, you know, hey, Captain, you're the senior. You can overwrite that. And I would have to correct them. I would tell them, no, whatever he says goes. And the only time I step in is if I see that something is wrong. I never had to step in.
What do you think, for those who are still mic'd, what do you hope the takeaway here is? I know this was helpful to really paint the picture of who these four were, but what do you hope we take home, or that the message that the community gets from doing this?
I don't know. I would like for the community to realize that we are people, and that we get a lot of abuse from the community. I mean, it's not. Sometimes it's not their fault. There's alcohol. There's drugs. There's, you know, anguish. All kinds of things. But I think they just need to remember we're people too, and we hurt massively at a time like this. And even when we just lose one of them, you know, when we lose a civilian, it hurts us really bad. And we just would like for them to know that we're people too. We really need them to think about us sometime too, you know, and when we're in these situations.
You know, a lot of times you don't know if what you do makes a difference. Okay, you really don't know if you're helping. You really don't know if you've done your job. And you know, driving in front of the fire station, all the people coming out to say thank you, we really do appreciate that. It's affirmation to us all, to our spirit. It's overwhelming outside.
Can I say one story? This one is feel like just seriously bugging me. And this is about the support of just random strangers. Am I good there? The day of the fire, that was a Friday. We didn't get to go home till Saturday morning. I have a little boy, and you know, I just wanted to just get home and hug him, and you know, just smell him and everything, you know. So I took him to Dave & Buster's, and I was just like, just get crazy for me, just do whatever you want. And here comes this fireman from South Montgomery County. Don't know him, nothing. And he hands me a gift card to Dave & Buster's, and he said I put $200 on it. You know, just let him have fun. And that's the type of support that just, he didn't have to do that, but he knew what I was feeling and what we were all going through, and he didn't ask me one single question, where I was from, nothing. He just seen my Houston Fire hat, and he just walked up to me and just crushed me. I was like, that was an awesome gesture, and that's the support that, you know, is awesome, and I just want to thank everybody for their support, you know.
It also kind of goes to show how strong the brotherhood is in the fire department, not only just in the city, but, you know, statewide, nationwide, worldwide. I mean, we've had firemen from Switzerland come and pay their respects to the fallen firefighters here. So, I mean, and likewise, we'll send people, you know, worldwide whenever we hear of a story of a fallen brother. So it just goes to show that how strong that our brotherhood is, and it really is amazing to see, and the support from the community has been great.